Hey everyone, I'm Julie Johnson, and this is the Empathy by Design podcast by Integrate Trauma Informed Network. And now today we have Jenna Little, who's been with us for it's probably like your fifth podcast you've done with us. She's been around with us for a long time. I always love being with people like in this group situation for long periods of time because you get to see like how they evolve in time, and it's really cool. I was just talking to her kind of about her journey. I was like, oh, I can do that with Jenna. Like, it's like we've seen each other through a lot of different phases of our experiences. But today we're talking with her about, and she's a background in, she's a diet, she's a background in diet in as a registered dietitian, trauma informed yoga teacher, and a trauma therapist. And now she's talking today the more about embodied sound. So Jenna, talk a little bit about your background and experience, but just like about embodied sound and embodied sound journeys, which we're going to be talking about because you've got a training coming up that sounds super cool, and I'm excited to take it eventually. But go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Julie. My background started off in wellness. So I am a dietitian. Wellness is something I was just passionate about early on, learning how to take care of myself. That translated into a nutrition degree, a dietetic credential, and then eventually I found yoga. So it was really beautiful to have all of this scientific knowledge meet practice, right? The yoga practice. And so I really love that kind of Eastern meets Western bridge moment, kind of blending Eastern medicine, Western medicine. So having the scientific background, then having the Eastern training with yoga philosophy and yoga, mindfulness, body work, really felt more like a whole story for me and made sense in my own personal career and then personal growth journey. So that's kind of the I would say the scaffolding of my career is East meets West. And I've just been
Hmm.
building on that along the way. And then the last few years, sound journeying has entered in, and it's been like the perfect, almost like drop of like it blends all of that at the same time, which is super cool. So that's where embodied sound is kind of coming from, is this Eastern meets Western approach, ancient and modern approach coming together and really providing a holistic experience that our bodies know, but are also learning to work with in a new way.
No, it's very cool because I think, and I was gonna take the training, but I have something else I gotta do first. But I was really excited and I was gonna sign up, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I think that it's really important. Jen and I were just talking about this before we hit record, is that a lot of the things that like I see right now are like crystal bowls and things, sound therapy training. And what I love about what you're doing is you're talking more about like how the a training on how the body responds to sound, and I think that that's really what sets what you're doing apart maybe from like other things that are being offered at the moment.
Definitely. Yeah. And not even just, I would expand that a little bit more, Julie, like not even just how the body responds to sound, but how the soul and the spirit also
Yeah.
respond to sound. So we know we have layers to our being. And what I found is that sound journeying is one of the fastest, most gentle and kind ways to go all the way to the center of self, and how we cut
Right.
through all the noise and all the defenses and all of the emotions that maybe sometimes block us from going to those deeper places. Sound
Hmm.
journey really is almost like this portal, and it gently guides us into the truth of ourselves in just such a gentle and kind way. So I'm excited to teach people that process so that more people can experience it.
Yeah, and it reminds me just because we work we in case you haven't noticed, we have an app, and Jenna actually teaches polyvagal theory a little bit in our the intro in our app, which is so great. People talk about it all the time. Um, but one of the things that I always like about sound from like the sort of the work I've been doing recently with like the app, these like small aspects, is like it doesn't have to take like a big experience. And I think sometimes, especially with where I'm going to kind of take this conversation a little bit, is like, I feel like right now, with all the complexity of the world for like the last 5 years, as long as I've known Jenna, actually, um, we've been through like a lot of world stuff like together on this platform. But the sound thing is important because I think a lot of people are moving towards sound, wanting sound. They're seeking like a peak experience, Like we have sound baths. Those are all good, by the way. I'm not knocking any of these by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we've seen an uptick in people seeking sound because they are seeking a deeper experience that gets right to what you're saying, which is like, I want to get to the soul. I want to get through the body to, some of the different layers of the body quicker so I can have some of those deeper human experiences. Because I've just noticed over the last 3 years, it's just, I feel like I'm just, sound is almost, at least in the area I live in, is almost as prominent as yoga is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
I'm not sure if it is anywhere else, but it is in my world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely become very popular. And if you think about it through the lens of polyvagal theory and all that our nervous systems have gone through over the last
Right.
5 years, 10 years, like we're kind of maxed out and we're at a
Yeah.
time or kind of a crossroads, I think, collectively where now we have the science and the data and we're almost
Mhm.
like the tools are catching up. Right. So sound has become one of those tools that everyone's like, oh, yeah, this works on the nervous system. And oh, yeah, we need to get out of fight or flight. And oh, yeah, sound helps us drop into rest and digest. So we don't just need a power yoga class or maybe even a yin class, which or restorative yoga class, which in the past, would have been the restorative things that we might have, reached for. Now we're opening up this whole other way of restoration that includes sound and sound baths. Even have you seen the sound baths where you float in the water? They're doing them like in
Yeah.
pools. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
it's like how restorative can we get this? Like we're creating like these womb-like experiences for people to go into deep rest. But, the reason we need that deep rest is because of all that our nervous systems are contending with on a daily basis. And over time, that wears us out.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've been talking about this a little bit more, I think in some of the UX circles I run in, but and we're definitely covering it in the app. Actually, our app is designed based off of having peak experiences and tinier moments. Actually, actually, how I modeled it because because I've seen this trend is of this need for these like when I say peak experiences, just things that get to a soul level in a quicker way. And I do mean that. And I mean, and I hate to say quick, but that is kind of where we are in the world, is you want to have those like, my nervous system needs aliveness. My nervous system is seeking these experiences to remind me what human feels like. It's not just all chaos, it's actually these other things, right? And I've been noticing that like in my own work and then in the people around me and myself, like, and I'm like, wow, what's that about? And I think, um, the quote that I wrote in our notes is every sound is a signal of safety and every pause is an invitation for integration. And I wrote that because I think we're really in a space where we're really trying to integrate some of the chaos we've been exposed to over a very, very, very long period of time, and there's no end in sight. And um, I think we're really craving integration as a society at the moment. And it sounds like I think sound has really been I don't know if I want to use the word portal, but for lack of a better word, that's where I'm at. A portal to helping us be able to integrate some of those experiences we can't describe. And it feels like that's where a lot of your work has gone to a certain degree.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I would say integration for sure is where we are. And again, even from a trauma lens of, in the past, we just thought whatever happened happened. It's kind of stuck back there. We can't
Mhm.
change the past, but now we know like our brain isn't hardwired, it's softwired and we can lay new memories and new moments. And one of the things I love about sound is like we can almost time travel a little bit, which is part of the sound journey experience.
Yeah.
So not only do we deepen into our humanity, but we can also extend and rise up and expand our spirituality. So a lot of people, the way I was kind of trained and the way I'm working with sound, it's almost a parallel journey as like a psychedelic journey,
Yeah.
except it's that tiny bite. So instead of going on an
Yeah.
ayahuasca journey or, this whole 8 hour facilitated, mushroom journey, right? It's like it's 15 minutes. It's 10 minutes and you have a trained facilitator that can integrate this little bite of spirituality or trauma healing or embodiment back into your life. So you don't have to travel anywhere. You don't have to go on a retreat to experience it. You can do it right in your bedroom in a very, very safe way. So That's what I'm excited about, and it is a integration tool where we can weave the past, but also kind of a it's not just the past, it's also this, I think, a bit of the future, which is the spirituality piece of how do we get that higher viewpoint of how to hold what we're holding right now in the world, right? So I think it gives us that higher view, if we want to use our journey for that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Can you describe a little bit more about like going from like signal to like this kind of maturation that you do in in your curriculum, like going from signal to flow integration?
Yeah.
You kind of just talked about it, transmission to a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll break it down as kind of how the experience unfolds. So, for someone to do a sound journey experience, there's a level of safety you have to come into contact with. So that would be the signal, right? Like
Right.
what are my contact points? What am I working with? And I always work with nature and the elements. So the earth
Hmm.
energy, what's around you, what's holding you. If we can't feel our bodies, it's hard to go inward. So
Yeah.
first we kind of come into contact with our own container using the energy of the earth. And then we go in toward the soul, right? Which is the emotions, the thoughts, the memories, the experiences. And so that would call that more the flow, right? As we go from container to content, what's inside of us is usually wrapped up in our soul work. So
Right.
what does our soul need to allow us to feel that flow state, that resonant state, that rest and digest, that unblocking, unmasking, and it feels like expansion. So to me, it's almost like when an ice cube thaws out and then it's like turns into water. How do we take that contracted energy and allow it to flow? So that's where the sound is kind of the medicine of the sound. It signals to the nervous system, you're safe to relax. You're safe to expand. You're safe to be creative. Sound journeys are very creative, very colorful,
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
metaphorical. So to me, that's kind of that safety to creativity or safety to integration. We could use that word too.
Oh, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of, I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Especially since, yeah, our app is kind of based off of a similar process, which I think is great. I want more. That's why I love being like working in, just different. This is kind of a tailspin, but it's important. I think I'm hoping more spaces on a systems level can work. I work more in systems, but like I can work more with that lens because I think it's really important right now. I think it's a big mirror as to why our app is developed the way it is. Because I've been looking at like, okay, well, if people are sensing that and needing that, then that's just how we design the world we're in. And that's what I like about moving there, because that's actually how it's our neurobiology. That's how our neurobiology works. And I think anything we can do to like move closer to that signal to integration at any point in time in that pendulation is absolutely good for us on all levels of our humanity.
Yes, yeah. Then and then I even love to that the spiral that we've been working with
Mhm.
in the app and that
Yeah.
right thinking of sound as the spiral and how do we flow into center and then
Hmm.
where do we go beyond that? So like even after the sound journey, something I have clients track is like their nervous system and the impacts of that and how are they
Hmm.
integrating that into their day-to-day life, their workflow, their families, their relationships. So I think that's a big piece of the work. We think everything's intervention focused, but it's what's after the intervention, right? What comes next?
Hmm.
Such an important piece of healing that I think gets missed a lot.
Yeah, and I think that you're talking about something that hits the nervous system and sound simultaneously. And I've been processing this a little bit in my own life too, is um especially people that like take the sound, take this sound and we kind of take these essences and kind of move what we call outward, into like from a signal to like an integration aspect to a transmission. Is like how do you think, and this could be for leadership, like healers, because I know you do work with healers because you're training healers, but also clients, like how do we take this concept of resonance and move it out, maybe even relational in the relational field? Does that make sense?
Yes, and my answer might be so simple that you might not even feel like it's an answer.
I love
But
it. Down.
when when we are truly tapped into that place, it flows out of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a natural byproduct. So this is the difference of like, I'll give you an example. When you go to, you have those good yoga classes and you're like, oh my gosh, like I just got exactly the medicine I was needing. My nervous system
Mhm.
was shifted. I had this beautiful experience. And the rest of your day, you just feel like you're kind of like floating on cloud nine a little bit, but
Yeah.
you got the medicine versus the times you go to a yoga class and it falls flat or something was off, or it didn't make sense, or it just felt jumbled, right? Chaotic. You,
Right.
you don't have that same state. You don't leave that class with that same, you're in a different state. So my answer would be when you do the sound journeying and you get brought into that inner place, that deeper state of meeting yourself and remembering who you are and kind of communing with the divine inside of you or the divine around you, you're naturally gonna be different in your relationships because
Yeah. And
you had an experience
go
that
on.
shifted your state.
Let's talk about resonance because I've been thinking about it a lot recently. I mean, just in sound in general, in resonance. Do you like, because I've seen people that hit resonance with sound or maybe in yoga or any other kind of bodied space. Like, is that the space for you, from your perspective, where I like in yoga teacher training over and over, at least in mine, people would be like, oh, if you work in the hips, they're gonna like cry. You know what I mean? Like, is that kind of what we're talking about when you go to, we're getting into those deeper states of tissues. So like emotions are coming. You see what I'm saying? Like, we're in those deeper levels. So like it may not always be happy and vibey. Actually, sometimes it can be quite sad, actually. What's your take on that?
What's my take on resonance?
Yeah. And
And
emotions, like what to expect. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Expectations.
yeah, expectations. Yeah, I mean, when we go inward, there's a whole lot there, right? There's
Mm,
a whole lot there. There can be so many different emotions. There can be polarized energy that's kind of frozen in time that needs
yeah.
connection. There can be generational trauma. I do a ton of
Yes.
work with generational trauma work using sound. Actually, it's become like one of my favorite ways to do trauma work in general is sound. So we're not
Yeah.
talking at all. We're only journeying into the body and what does the body know and remember and need to digest and process. So to me, resonance really is about how much can I connect to, how safe am I to connect with what I find inside? That's one piece. How do I resonate with my own inside experience? But if I'm
Hmm.
a facilitator, if I have a facilitator, their nervous system is now part of the intervention too.
Yeah.
Right? So just like a yoga teacher's nervous system is going to influence the whole energy of the class. So
Yeah.
we as healers have to know we have to know our own vibration. And I don't mean like
Hmm.
my vibes. I mean
Right.
our embodied connection. We have to know our own
Yeah.
embodied connection and what we're bringing into the space. And then from that place, we're really just kind of inviting our clients to mirror. We're like a mirror to them. Like
Yeah.
here I am, I'm flowing, now you flow. I'm breathing, now you breathe. I'm human, now you be human. What's in your
Right.
humanity you need to face, right? So I don't know if that
Totally.
kind of touching on
No,
it.
no, no. That absolutely. That's what I was saying. Cause like we talk lots of times about transmission and stuff and like deep energy work and like some of those deeper layers and sound is definitely in that. And that's what I was saying. Cause I was like, in my experiences, when we start going into those deeper levels, you just answer the question is people are like, well, resonance is there and I feel connected to the space. And also, man, this brings up the grief of like, maybe this time my mom, didn't see me or now I'm being seen and why am I, you know what I mean? Like it's these
Yeah.
old memories that come up. That's what I'm saying. Why do I feel sad all of a sudden? Well, it's sometimes in resonance from like a nervous system lens, those emotions come up because it's safe enough for you to feel the experience.
Yes.
Ugh.
And and the languages that I use and give to my clients is that those parts, we can call them
Mhm.
stored energy or emotions or memories, need a witness.
Right.
I have to be willing to witness myself. If I'm on a healing journey, I am signing up to witness what I've been carrying my whole life. Some of it was
Yeah.
inherited, some of it I participated in, and some of it was just passed down. And
Right.
so we have to be willing, and this is where courage comes in because we don't always want to see, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the sound journey to me, doing a sound journey is like learning to walk in the dark.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
all logical, but it's sensory. And so what happens when I'm in a dark room and I can't see the path in front of me? I have to trust my feet and my hands and use all of my senses to find safety, right? So there's a little bit of like learning how to go inward, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be bumpy, but then you learn that all these things inside of you aren't against you.
Right. Yeah.
And they're
Totally.
that actually just need someone to grab them by the hand and say, "Hey, tell me. Let me witness
Y-
you." Right? And so then that creates a bit of a safety bond between what am I gonna find when I go in? But I think what you're naming is you're not just gonna go in and be like, "Oh, in a state of bliss," right?
Right. Yeah. That's what I think sometimes I think people are surprised when we start talking about resonance and being with, because lots of times sound healing is, well, you're with people, but you're not talking, but these human experiences come up, you know what I mean? And and sometimes I think it can be a little like, oh, but I thought if I'm in resonance, that means my nervous system feels like supported. And that's like it's opening. It opens you, which is also why you need a good sound like a trusted person, by the way.
And I think of the term resonance as like telling the truth,
Yeah.
right? It's not really associated with like a good, bad, happy, sad.
Right.
It's like resonance is accuracy to me. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? I can be honest and accurate on what's inside of me, and whoever's holding the space is also able to be honest and accurate with what's coming up. So it's like congruence, right?
It's congruence. I think that's a really valid, yeah, that's a really valid way of saying that. And I like the accuracy of it because it is like yeah, it's a witnessing aspect for sure. And I'm glad that you have that in your talk about it because I think it's so important with sound. Because then we talk a lot about entrainment and we talk about resonance, and sometimes I think they're used interchangeably.
Mhm.
But I like how you talk about the resonance as accuracy to an experience of a nervous system experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And teaching people like you are your best witness at the end of the day.
Hmm. Yeah.
Not the facilitator, not the yoga teacher, not the meditation guide. Like we have to develop the eyes to witness ourselves, and that is where so much power is restored, especially from trauma healing.
Yeah. So tell me, but like, and going to that point in your training, tell me a little bit more about like in the facilitator space, as you've been talking a little bit about that in your training, how do you kind of tie in these presences of nerve, the resonance and presence and
Mhm.
leadership? How do you tie those in together? Because it's super important.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm just wondering how you tie that in to
Yeah.
this like learning journey.
Yeah, so a lot of it is gonna be kind of teaching people a lay of the land, kinda like the landscape of sound journeying and what to expect, like how
Hmm.
set up a sound journey experience, but then a lot of it is how do you hold the space? How do you guide,
Hmm.
be the container, be the witness of somebody else? And so a lot of it is gonna come back to their own embodiment work, and I'm going to teach the body, soul, spirit story framework, which is my embodied growth framework, which is basically honoring all the layers of a person. So,
Yes.
yes, they're going to get nervous system work, but what are you going to do when someone says, "I just saw my grandmother who died 10 years ago?"
Right.
Well, right? Like, and that happens a lot. A lot of
It
ancestor
does.
comes up, a lot of
Right.
generations. So I want to prepare them of like what portal we're actually opening clients up to have, but that we're going to actually have to hold. And how do we hold that? Hopefully, we've done enough of our own work to be have some awareness of generational healing. But I'll be
Yeah.
teaching on like ancestral work, generational healing. The five elements is a big part of the
Love it.
of this work of what do we do with the wisdom of the elements because those show up a lot in sound journey. So there'll be kind of like these layers of like layer one, layer two. So layer one might be nervous system, layer two the elements, layer three ancestral work, layer four collective trauma. All of that shows up in sound journey. So just kind of giving them a highlighted step of like This, when someone's contracted, they're very much in their own body. When they start to
Right.
expand, they're going to move through those layers, from self to collective. And there's a journey that comes with that.
And I like how you talked about the those yeah, those spiritual aspects that come up with it because wow, that is true. That is very true. I don't think like when I went through Reiki training and I went through Reiki 3 finally, I mean, it's been years since I went through that training, but absolutely, by the time I got to that third level, we were chalking out people's, things were showing up, is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
in those places. And I think it's really important to know how to facilitate that, especially actually reminds me of someone that we work with in Integrate who's been doing a lot of that work in a really great way. If that's something that Carla has kind of, her work has really gotten over to how to manage that. And it's very powerful. I know you're a fan of Carla's. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
but she does know, she trains on how to manage that, which it's very cool work. And I'm glad you're bringing it in as well.
Mhm.
Um, so, let's talk a little bit more about so in terms of um, the safety aspect of things, let's give an example. I was kind of going into it earlier, like how, what would be a skill somebody like to manage a situation like that? Okay, where things get a little, you know, maybe another different dimension. And
Multi-dimensional.
multi-dimensional. I think it's really important. I mean, I have had some, and I think I think a lot of right now that we're dealing with right now is really very multi-dimensional. Actually, I just got back from coffee with my friend who works in that realm for cranial sacral work, and so this is actually a verbatim thing from coffee earlier with my friend. But I think trauma informed skills at that level are so important. So what skills, on a very basic way, what's your give a little sneak, what's the tip here?
Yeah. Well, I think that the biggest thing that I've held on to as I've led many journeys over the last few years is that we are not there to decipher or decode
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
It's sound journeying is so personal. It's so personal
yeah,
to that person. The biggest thing, like I said earlier, is like they witness themselves. So it's really getting to lean back. You're there to lean
yeah,
back and provide that other
yeah.
state of nervous system and that second set of witnessing. You're the back seat to they're the primary, right? And maybe the elements and the spirituality and all their other higher power
Mhm.
them. But for us, the cheat sheet is like, I don't have to know it all. I don't have to figure
Yeah,
it out. I have to stay in compassion and curiosity. And as
right,
much as I can hold that, that gives the client or the person journeying an opportunity to really offer that radical compassion and curiosity to themselves and
right.
not turn on themselves. Right. So
Exactly.
from a safety standpoint, I think when we're going inward, say we come up against shame or a grief, like we could easily, if we don't have the ability to hold that, sometimes we can turn against ourselves. But the
Right,
beautiful thing about sound is also a therapist. The music is a therapist, and it
right.
regulates you while you're remembering and seeing. So rarely do I have anyone come out of a sound journey dysregulated because
Yeah.
they're regulated every step of the journey.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, and it kind of ends up being kind of like your backup to your own nervous system, which I always appreciate, especially if you're human. You know what I mean? Like that's like one thing about being like an energy worker. It's like you're like, I'm regulated, but like I don't know. Like up to a point. That's the cool thing about sound is it's kind of like your insurance. It's like your
Yes,
nervous system insurance.
yes, that's a great way to put it. And then reminding the client, like the client also has a lot inside of them to work with, right? So
Yeah.
sound brings us into abundance and not scarcity. So
Yeah.
by the time
Totally.
we even get into there's a whole kind of like step one, step two to prepare for the journey that I am going to teach in the embodied sound. By the time we even get to the sound, they're so connected to resources around them. They're going in with a like full like load of resourcing, right?
I love it.
So there's a lot of layers of safety. I mean, I am big on setting people up for success. I can't stand when this is a pet peeve. I just can't stand when people are like, let's just jump into your trauma and like feel everything and like have no resources. A good trauma therapist wouldn't do that. But when we think about people who call themselves healers, they're not always trained in, in
No.
practices. So again, it's like I'm really big on buffer, 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 and then letting the client pick and choose with what they connect with most. And I'll be teaching that as well to the healers that want to start to work with sound journeys as well.
I I love that. I love that. Do you have any like examples of sound at all? I mean, it can even be humming, but like, do you have any examples that are that like to hear like a little piece of it at
Snippet.
all?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I use all sorts of sounds, but I can play something for you through my phone
Okay.
if that's okay.
Sure.
So I have several playlists that I make and work with this. I do them individually, and then I have some that I work with groups. Let me pull one up. Again, it's not that different than being a yoga teacher that makes her playlist. It's very similar.
That's a
Um,
really good way of
it's
saying it.
really similar, but I'll give you one. So I love to use them. I personally like to use all instrumental music, but
Yeah.
I've participated in sound journeys that had like regular lyrics and everything. Like
Oh,
so
what cool.
it can be any music, but this is an example. This is a bit of a Native American song that I used recently. So I'll turn that on.
Cannot hear that, but that doesn't mean it. Tell you what we'll
Let,
do. Good.
let me see if I can hit this. Okay, see if you can hear it now.
Oh, now we can hear it. Okay. Oh, cool. Oh, I could see this being really great. Oh yeah. That's awesome. That now do you get the music off of like it's like a sound library or do you kind of just
So I just you can sit with your Apple Music, your Spotify, whoever
okay.
you subscribe with, and I've been making playlists for a long time as a yoga teacher,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I just kind of drop in and put my headphones on, and I just start to build playlists that I
I love
personally
it.
would want to use. So I base it off my personal preference, and um, and I try to feel my way through it. So again, it's like walking through the dark a little bit. And
Hmm.
I like if something doesn't feel right in my body or in my nervous system or my spirit, then I just will take it out. But it's been really cool to like build these playlists, and then I use them in my individual therapy with clients, the sound journey.
Hmm.
But then I also do them in my tune-up groups, and it's been pretty cool to get the feedback. So they take people to different places. No person gets the same thing from anything because you're really going into your soul. So it's just a matter of having that signal to your ears, like it's safe to go
Yes.
inward, and
Hmm.
then you drop in, and it's your own personal journey.
I love that. I love that. So good. Well, thank you for showing us that. Is there anything else that you want to share about the training or the sound journey that is coming up for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the remembering that there's a lot of safety built into sound journeys because for me personally, I just hadn't found a gentle trauma healing modality like this
Yeah.
before. And so I think that's a bit of its superpower is, whether we're working with collective trauma or individual trauma, all of our systems need restoration. And so finding safe ways to restore to me tends to be the hallmark of sound journeying. And then from that place, it becomes less about trauma healing and more about communing with yourself and
Yeah.
the divine. And so my tidbit would be don't be surprised if you dabble with sound journeys if you start to expand your spiritual connection. So that's a
Yeah.
big piece of it that I think is important. It really is the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. So if you think about the chakras, like from the heart to the crown, the ears are right in the middle.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's also cool because, it also can be a really great way to like, because once you start talking about expanding, like I've seen it also work where like people start to like co-regulate, they like will do couple sound journeys and,
Yeah.
you start to see kind of a more of like a relational healing realm as well. So,
Yep, yep. It's definitely a way to do your own personal nervous system work, but then also tap into kind of that higher power connection. So, yeah, I think
yep,
they're so layered. So, I would say too, for people, just start where they are, get curious,
yeah,
and see where it takes them.
cool. Thanks so much, Jenna. You can go find out more about Jenna's work. It's in the show notes, but also at jennalittle.com.
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right.